Heads up, I'm about to spoil this nerd game about swords. Overall, the Xenoblade series is one I would opt to call quite feel-good. I mean, the basic premise of the first 3 games is that a band of adventurers use the power of a mythical sword to combat the forces of evil and save people while forming deep personal bonds between one another along the way, which sounds pretty happy-go-lucky adventure, but the thing is, the 3rd game in this series has characters I feel are enough to classify this story as a full-on bona fide tragedy. Not to say the first 2 games are all rainbows and sparkles, as death is no stranger to this series, albeit they only ever really kill off side characters, antagonists obviously, and bring back the main characters they kill, except for exclusively the best character in the series, but that all changes in the 3rd game where almost everybody suffers. Few times in any story will you ever see a fate worse than death, but this game makes death look like part of a daily routine. This game takes place in a world of constant war where soldiers kill just to steal the life force of other soldiers to fuel their giant robot they need to survive. But of course, in order to have a war spanning over an entire world, they would need a lot of soldiers, so they grow them in tubes where from birth they train, fight, then die. And where you're thinking that's the end of the story, you couldn't be more wrong. Upon death, they're recycled back into the system, where they have their memories wiped before getting shot back out to do it all again. Where death is usually the worst fate someone can have, here it's simply customary. Now, that alone is quite the sad story for an entire world, but that's not the tragedy I was talking about. I'm, of course, talking about the story of Noah and Mio, the 2 main characters of the game. These are characters who are revealed to have an extremely tragic past towards the closing chapters of the game. You see them throughout the story develop this unique relationship where they'll often talk and sometimes even argue about the deep philosophical concepts related to their time left and what legacy they would like to leave behind. They're both Offseers, so all the people they've met with their own ideas of a legacy they would like to leave behind, they've had to personally send off after that person's untimely demise. These 2 have had to stand still and really look at the fallen after a battle. Many modern-day smart people, like British essayist Pico Iyer, talk about how we can simply learn a lot by sitting still as we can reflect on so much around us without distractions. Of course, those eggheads are referring to how we're in an age where we're all mindless zombies glued to devices engineered to hold our attention for as long as humanly possible, but we can see this right at the beginning of this game too. Following the opening battle between Colony 9 and Colony Sigma, Noah stands to see off all the fallen on both sides, and there's a clear contrast in mannerisms between Noah and Lanz and Uni. They're quite annoyed that they have to sit through this after every battle, and even complain because it causes them to miss the transport back home, but Noah doesn't listen to their whining. His companions don't sit still and only think of the battle as their victory. They're simply blind to the reality Noah has to see when he gazes over the valley of still husks and has to give them a proper send-off. Only when you've been tasked with dealing with the aftermath of a battle do you really see the consequences. We see this quite clearly in Mio's character. When she was assigned the role of Offseer, she was livid, she was hot-headed, and her skills were top of her class, and she saw it as a waste of time to hang back and play the flute to send off people who were too dead to appreciate the gesture. But after some time off-seeing with Miyabi, where she had to sit still and look over the valleys of the dead, she thought about the concepts of life and death just the same as Noah. The 2 of them connect with one another because their time as Offseers, they have both come to truly know the value of a life, which makes them the complete polar opposite of the consuls who kill soldiers by the hundreds without even a second thought. This is why the team learns to truly hate the tyrants controlling the world and opts to cut them down for the sake of the soldiers dying everywhere. And just when you think you've wrapped your head around who's good and who's bad in this game and drawn that clear distinction between the 2, the game hits you with what the fuck? 2 of their sworn enemies take off their masks and this rabbit hole gets even deeper. Why do they have their face? Why the fuck do they have the same face? And shortly after, we learn just how much more these 2 characters have suffered. We learn just how much worse than death their fates have been. We learn Noah and Mio had met before in their past lives of war and death many times. It's almost as if they were destined to meet, fight Mobius together, die in battle, and do it again. It's revealed that the bad Noah and Mio are the original who were exploited by this fucking guy who gave them the chance to serve him in exchange for the promise that they'd never see each other die again. Our new Noah and Mio were then born into the cycle again from the old Noah and Mio's dead hopes and dreams, which is obviously gonna make them feel even more wronged by this awful world that forced them into an unwinnable battle and punished them even when they chose not to fight. Learning their past gave them even more conviction to set this world free from war, and so they reawaken and rescue the 2 people who have the power to unite the world as one, and together they take down the evil god guy, and you're then thinking these 2 people who have suffered pain lasting multiple lifetimes, who only ever wanted to be free, are finally able to spend their lives together. What a happy ending!
One day, I'll come see you, I promise.
Me too! One day, I promise!